Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Politics Matter Jamaica podcast. I am your host, of course. Hello, neighbor. Please remember to join me on TikTok for the Hello Neighbor show this evening at 7 o'clock. Of course, we'll be live on TikTok and, of course, on YouTube. That's 7 o'clock this evening, the Hello Neighbor show. Um, this is the Hello Neighbor podcast, which you never know when we'll come on here on YouTube because there are always so many things to talk about and so many things in our library that we are working on. And from time to time, we'll come on and share these things with you. I want to talk to you for the next couple of minutes, though, on the whole matter of truth, sovereignty, and the moral crisis of Jamaican politics. The Daryl Vaz visa story, truth, power, and reputation. It's a fascinating story. And, even as Jamaica celebrates its 64th year of independence, there are some troubling stories coming out of the news that should concern all of us in Jamaica. All of us should be concerned about it. Mr. Vaz says that he's unfazed by a new wave of attack from what he calls PNP operatives on social media. PNP operatives on social media. My information is that these operatives are deliberate. The PNP operatives are deliberate, and that they're taking and getting their instructions from the PNP. A massive story, and I think Jamaicans ought to be talking about it. Mr. Vaz, in a statement, says he has taken note of the numerous videos alluding to the revocation of his United States visa a few years ago. I don't know if you remembered how big a story it was at that time. Mr. Vaz says that it's clear that those PNP operatives have not learned their lessons. Here is Mr. Vaz. Here's Mr. Vaz.
I have seen the postings on social media as it relates to the re-emergence of my visa revocation matter. Let me indicate again that I was cleared of these unfounded, politically based allegations by both the US authorities and the Jamaican authorities. Hence, my visa being fully reinstated. Again, it seems as if the PNP operatives have not learned their lesson from their General Secretary's apology and retraction.
Okay. So the retraction by the PNP's General Secretary still very current, and the PNP is again online talking about Mr. Vaz's revocation. The former United States ambassador, Mr. Donald Tapia, had a fascinating interview on Cliff Hughes Online. We'll be talking about a little bit more about that in our show at 7 o'clock. But here is George Davis.
I'm not name dropping the PN. What Tapia has said no.
Sorry, George Davis made some comments on that this morning, and I want you to listen to that. Listen to him.
About the PNP's involvement. It's not my interpretation. I'm not name dropping the PNP here. As I say, I'm just here washing up plate after Tapia and Cliff Hughes had a hell of a feast on Cliff Hughes Online on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
He said PNP, he said Dr. Peter Phillips, and he said PNP more than once. So we're in no doubt, according to Tapia, of where the rumors against Vaz came from about his visa. Watch this now. September 2021. A press release issued by the PNP. The People's National Party is calling on Minister Daryl Vaz to explain details surrounding a waiver he was granted that has helped him to secure a one-year US visa. According to the PNP, the need for this waiver raises immediate concerns which must be addressed. The opposition is calling on Vaz to clarify for the people of Jamaica the circumstances which led to the need for a waiver. Direct quote from the press release now, sent on Saturday, September 25. Mr. Vaz is a sitting member of the cabinet, and the need for this waiver raises immediate concerns which must be addressed, as it indicates that the consular officer had reason to believe that Mr. Vaz is associated with drug trafficking.
My God. Listen to
that. That was the PNP's release of September 25, 2021.
Can you pause it here? Now, are you hearing that? Are you hearing that? And I am beginning to ask the question, quietly to myself. What type of organization is the PNP really? Is the PNP a political party seeking power in the interests of the Jamaican people? Because political parties don't operate like this. What should we make of these situations? It's a fascinating interview, It unlocks a lot of things that are yet to be said. And on top of that, the PNP operatives are back online with allegations about Daryl Vaz. Let's continue to listen to George Davis from Nationwide.
Then, based on what the former US ambassador has said, if it is that we are to believe that the PNP has run a program on Daryl Vaz and ran that program for a long time, is it the same PNP now who's asking Vaz to fess up and to say his visa revoked and why the consular officer was given reason to believe that Vaz is associated with drug trafficking? And the PNP raised the Vaz visa issue as recently as when Isaac Buchanan was coming into politics. And the JLP raised concerns about the Isaac issue. And they said, well, Vaz had his US visa revoked for trafficking issues. And you all hug up Vaz. So who are you now to talk about us putting forward Isaac Buchanan as a standard bearer for the party? These are things that in the normal course of things, it's a boy deserve commission of inquiry. But there's so much work to be done here. But we can't just let this slide. The PNP is very quick, very swift. Their media center is very active. They churn out releases. Everything there's a PNP response, a PNP release. There was no release about the voice notes concerning Major Anderson and Nara. Mm-hmm. I haven't yet seen a release about what Tapia said. What do you think? Do you think they'll respond officially to what the former US ambassador said? Will they say he was telling lies? Because that's the only thing that can cause the record not to retain the entry that the PNP told lies on Daryl Vaz, sufficient for him to lose his visa and sufficient for his reputation to be stained. I really hope it's not so. As our alternative government, it would look good for this to be the truth. What Tapia has...
One of Jamaica's rising, respected young journalists is suggesting that there may need to be a commission of inquiry into this matter. I'd love to hear your views on it. That there should be a commission of inquiry into this matter. And the journalist, George Davis, very well respected, is asking whether the People's National Party told lies on Mr. Vaz, a cabinet minister, that led to the revocation of his visa. Did the PNP lie? You know, I have told my listeners that there is a difference between misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation is a mistake, and human beings are fallible. They are susceptible to error. Only God is infinite. We can make mistakes. Misinformation is a mistake. Disinformation is the deliberate peddling of falsehood. So you know it is wrong, but you still say it. And the journalist is asking whether the People's National Party lied. The People's National Party is the alternative government in Jamaica. In other words, there is a possibility that at some time in the future, the PNP will be the government of Jamaica. As green as you may be, and as Labourite as you are, you don't expect the Labour Party to remain in power forever. And here we have one of the most respected journalists in Jamaica asking if the PNP lied. Why should we not demand, as citizens of this country, we not demand that there be a thorough, independent, and thorough investigation into what Donald Tapia said? Mr. Tapia met with the president of the People's National Party, Dr. Peter Phillips, and my understanding is that there were other members of the party at that meeting. And Mr. Vaz lost his visa because a dossier is a file presented to the US Embassy with allegations on a government minister turns out to be a lie. The United States ambassador is now saying that he was misled. Fascinating stuff. And so as Jamaica marks 64 years of independence, perhaps the greatest question confronting us is not economic or constitutional. Not economic or constitutional. I hear there's talk about constitutional reform and opposition and government meeting. The greatest question in my mind is a moral question. And I can link this all to the various investigations that are happening in Jamaica, including those taking place involving the Prime Minister of Jamaica. You will recall that the Integrity Commission employed a foreign investigator to come to Jamaica to investigate the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And based on our understanding, that investigator found nothing on the Prime Minister. And to date, the Prime Minister's statutory declarations remain uncertified. Jamaica have to stop. Jamaica need to pause. And there must be some questions asked and answered in the 64 year of our independence, because we cannot move forward like this. Because there is a breakdown of trust. I don't know how we can trust after this. We face a moral crisis. What kind of political community have we become? And most importantly, what kind of people are we becoming? What kind of people are we becoming? Because the reported remarks by the former United States ambassador, they invite us. They invite us to reflect far beyond the circumstances surrounding Daryl Vaz. They compel us to examine the relationship between truth, the relationship between truth and power, the relationship between politics and ethics, the relationship between sovereignty and institutional integrity. I tell you the truth, after listening to this interview, I don't know that I'll be celebrating this independence. I don't see nothing really to be so happy about. Very, very sad what is happening here. Because if the account is to be accepted on the face of it, the United States revoked the visa of a sitting Jamaican parliamentarian based on information that was found later after the investigation to be unsupported. Imagine that. A man lost his visa based on a dossier provided to the embassy by the People's National Party, and the information contained therein was false. If that is so, the issue transcends one individual, because it raises profound questions about how allegations are made, how institutions evaluate them, and how reputations can be damaged long before facts are established. That is why I am raising a concern about what is happening at the Integrity Commission. There is a link, and I won't get too deep into it today. Donovan Scott, good afternoon to you. You're on YouTube. Good afternoon to you, Shirley. Thank you for joining me. Because whether one supports the Jamaica Labour Party or the People's National Party, or no political party at all, one principle should unite every Jamaican in 64 years of our independence. One principle should unite us. And that is that justice cannot exist where accusations are allowed to outrun evidence. Accusations can't outrun evidence. That's not justice. And you know, Aristotle, philosopher Aristotle, he believed that that justice is the foundation of the political community, because without justice there can be no trust. That is more than 2,000 years ago. Aristotle. Justice is the foundation of the political community, because without justice there can be no trust. And justice is not a cloistered virtue. And politics is not merely the contest of power. It is the ethical administration of truth. The ethical administration of truth. And once truth becomes subordinated, when you subordinate truth to the political advantage or for political advantage, democracy begins to consume itself from within. It begins to eat away the democracy in the 64th year of our independence. Must be examined, because truth and lies are now battling it out in Jamaica. What does a man have but his reputation? Reputation is among the most fragile aspects of human existence. A lifetime of public service can be overshadowed by a single allegation. Lifetime of public service. To Mr. Vaz.
I have seen the postings on social media as it relates to the re-emergence of my visa revocation matter. Let me indicate again that I was cleared of these unfounded, politically based allegations by both the US authorities and the Jamaican authorities. Hence, my visa being fully reinstated. Again, it seems as if the PNP operatives have not learned their lesson from their General Secretary's apology and retraction.
A lifetime of public service can be tarnished by a single allegation. Human beings are predisposed, you see, to remember accusations more vividly than exonerations. People will condemn you on a lie. They say lie go around the world or around the earth before truth puts on their underpant or its underpant. So true. And people are not going to remember the exonerations. They remember the accusations. And the stain often lingers after innocence has been established. Especially in this country, Jamaica, that saps up lies like them a suck back juice. This is why the philosophers and the psychologists, they have recognized that a false or unsubstantiated allegation inflicts harms that legal remedies alone cannot fully repair. And so when Mr. Campbell came out and read an apology, what does that do to 40 years of falsehood? whether or not the visa controversy affected the electoral outcomes of the Jamaica Labour Party is ultimately for the historians. But it is reasonable to observe that allegations involving senior political figures can shape public perception. And if you are going into an election and the other side puts out something that causes one side, one member of one side, or members of one side to be losing their visa, it creates a perception in the mind of the public that that side, something wrong. And I want you to listen to George Davis again. Listen.
Said no about the PNP's involvement. It's not my interpretation. I'm not name dropping the PNP here. As I say, I'm just here washing up plate after Tapia and Cliff Hughes had a hell of a feast on Cliff Hughes Online on Tuesday. He said PNP, he said Dr. Peter Phillips, and he said PNP more than once. So we're in no doubt, according to Tapia, of where the rumors against Vaz came from about his visa. Watch this now. September 2021. A press release issued by the PNP. The People's National Party is calling on Minister Daryl Vaz to explain details surrounding a waiver he was granted that has helped him to secure a one-year US visa. According to the PNP, the need for this waiver raises immediate concerns which must be addressed. The opposition is calling on Vaz to clarify for the people of Jamaica the circumstances which led to the need for a waiver. Direct quote from the press release now, sent on Saturday, September 25. Mr. Vaz is a sitting member of the cabinet, and the need for this waiver raises immediate concern which must be addressed, as it indicates that the consular officer had reason to believe that Mr. Vaz is associated with drug. That was the PNP's release of September 25, 2021. So then, based on what the former US ambassador has said, I believe that the PNP has run a program on Daryl Vaz and ran that program for a long time. Is it the same PNP who's asking Vaz to fess up and to say why his US visa had been revoked and why the consular officer was given reason to believe that Vaz is associated with drug trafficking? And the PNP raised the Vaz visa issue as recently as when Isaac Buchanan was coming into politics. And the JLP raised concerns about the Isaac issue. And they said, well, Vaz had his US visa revoked for trafficking issues. And you all hug up Vaz. So who are you now to talk about us putting forward Isaac Buchanan as a standard bearer for the party? These are things that in the normal course of things, it's a boy deserve commission of inquiry. But there's so much work to be done here. But we can't just let this slide. The PNP is very quick, very swift. Their media center is very active. They churn out releases. Everything is a PNP response, a PNP release. There was no release, voice notes concerning Major Anderson and Nara. Mm-hmm. I haven't yet seen a release about what Tapia said. What do you think? Do you think they'll respond officially to what the former US ambassador said? Will they say he was telling lies? Because that's the only thing that can cause the record not to retain the entry that the PNP told lies on Daryl Vaz, sufficient for him to lose his visa and sufficient for his reputation to be stained. I really hope it's not so. As our alternative government, it will look good for this to be the truth. What Tapia has...
Imagine that. What a provocative question. Did the PNP lie? Did the People's National Party lie and caused the revocation of Daryl Vaz's visa? Was it a lie? And if it is a lie, can the PNP really offer themselves with all truth and honesty as a government to be elected to lead the Jamaican people? It's a question that must be asked. And I believe, as Mr. George Davis is suggesting, that there need to be a commission of inquiry into this matter. There must be a commission of inquiry into this matter. And this is where civil society, in my view, is so disappointed in this country. Because civil society tend to only speak when there are matters involving the Jamaica Labour Party, or when there are matters involving the People's National Party. Civil society tend to be quiet, including the church. That's not good. Not good at all. Damage the man's reputation. And as I said to you earlier, whether the controversy affected the electoral outcome of the Jamaica Labour Party, which I think it did, but the historians will take that up. But it is reasonable to observe that allegations involving a senior political figure would shape the public's perception, and it would influence the public's confidence. And that shaping of perception and the influence of confidence is definitely bound to alter the political narrative. And this is precisely why due process matters. Because justice is not merely about reaching the correct conclusion eventually. Justice is about ensuring that the process itself respects fairness, evidence, and restraint. And you see all this hullabaloo about the Commission of Inquiry, the Integrity Commission, and Wheatley's to be charged. It is nonsense. Justice is not merely about reaching the correct conclusion eventually. That's not justice. It's about ensuring that the process respects fairness, that the process respects evidence, and that the process exercises restraint, because a man is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. There have been in history executions of innocent people. There are people in prison right now serving terms of imprisonment that are innocent. People have lost their lives. Some have been brought to the gallows. And the man who committed the crime is walking free. We must stop this nonsense in this country of trying to prosecute people in the media, on social media, and traditional media too. You know, theologically, the scriptures repeatedly warn against false witness because it destroys more than individuals. It erodes the moral fabric of the society. The commandment, "He shall not bear false witness against your neighbor," is not simply a prohibition against lying. It is a recognition that civilization itself depends upon truthful testimony. And once societies become comfortable weaponizing accusations for political gain, weaponizing political accusation for political gain, then trust disappears and our institutions are weakened and our citizens, our neighbors become adversaries. Truth is a biblical tradition. It's not merely a factual it's not merely factual accuracy. It is a covenant. Faithfulness. Truth is a moral obligation to speak honestly, to judge fairly, and refuse to manipulate reality for personal and political advantage. Did the PNP lie? Did they lie? Because if they lied, if the PNP lied, then this country faces a political crisis, a crisis of leadership. Because then we would only be left with one party. And that is not good for the democracy. And the PNP need to answer the question. How did this happen? I suspect that they will remain quiet. Truth is also a comfortable question. But there is also an uncomfortable question about sovereignty. When we discuss this matter of truth, there is an uncomfortable question about sovereignty. Jamaica is an independent nation. Yet the visa controversy reminds us that decisions taken by foreign governments can have significant consequences for Jamaican public life. And every sovereign state has the right to determine who enters its borders. At the same time, Jamaicans should expect that decisions affecting their elected representatives are grounded in reliable evidence rather than rumor or unverified claims. Propaganda can bring down a government. The Machiavellian politics is deleterious to a democracy like ours. And that's why if you study Singapore, you realize that Lee Kuan Yew suppressed certain voices for the advancement of the country. And Jamaica, remains a little bit unserious about its development. Because what we are seeing here is not opposition, it's obstruction. The larger lesson is not about criticizing another country's sovereign decisions. It is about ensuring that Jamaica's own political culture does not become a source of unreliable information that undermines confidence in our institution or our leaders. Can you trust the People's National Party? Can they be trusted? We are going to have a local election maybe next year. And it is likely that we will come out of those elections with People's National Party mayors. And we heard them in a voice note talking about playing the ball game of politics. And then we're going to elect them as mayors and councillors. When is Jamaica going to wake up and ask these questions? When? Glow Joby, thank you. Cindy Lynch, Hi, I'm so glad there is a God in heaven and he will pay each of us our just dues. Thank you. Joe Blow, Glow Joby, and when they lie to destroy people's character, the defenders of free speech say it is their right. So true. This reflection also speaks of present day investigations involving the Prime Minister and other public officials. The lesson is not that investigations should cease. That's not the lesson. On the contrary, mature democracies require independent oversight. Mature democracies require accountability, and mature democracy require rigorous scrutiny of those who hold power. But there is an equally important principle. Investigations must never become substitutes for evidence, nor should allegations be treated as convictions. And I will say this here, that when I listen to Donald Tapia, I am concerned about the present investigation that is taking place that involves the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. The investigation is outlasting the man's term of office. Can we trust it? The process. Can we trust the process? I have my doubts. Independent commissions, law enforcement agencies, and oversight bodies drive. These oversight bodies derive their legitimacy not from the number of investigations they undertake. That's not how they derive their legitimacy. They derive their legitimacy from the unwavering commitment to impartiality. They derive their legitimacy from due process and the evidence wherever it leads. And if they vindicate an official, that finding deserves as much public respect as an adverse finding. If they uncover wrongdoing, accountability should follow. The integrity of the institution depends on its fidelity to truth rather than to political expectations. I see Mr. Abe Dabdu calling for the prosecutorial powers of the Integrity Commission to be removed. And even as we speak, Dr. Andrew Wheatley, his case is now going for judicial review. Why? Because the person involved, which is the minister, says that the Integrity Commission got it wrong. And what if the court finds that the Integrity Commission did get it wrong? What would be a crisis of confidence in that institution? Because even the United States Embassy got it wrong. They suspended Daryl Vaz's visa because they said they were misled. Misled by who? Who misled them? What a fascinating case. You know, we must be careful, because a democracy can collapse. A democracy can collapse, not only when corruption goes unpunished, but also when innocence is no longer capable of restoring a damaged reputation. Perhaps the deepest lesson of this episode is that Jamaica's greatest struggle is not simply political, but moral. We have too often confused political victory with moral victory. We celebrate exposing our opponents more than examining ourselves. We do not look in the mirror. We sometimes mistake suspicion for proof and rhetoric for reality. Immanuel Kant, you see, he's a German philosopher. Immanuel Kant, he argued that every person must be treated as an end in themselves, never merely as means to another person's objective. And one of the pathetic reality of Jamaica's politics is that the poor people of Jamaica, the poor, undereducated, civic illiterate people, are exploited. They are means to people's political ends. That is pathetic. It's almost a sin. And Kant argued that each person must be treated as end in themselves, never merely as means to another person's objective. You lie your way into parliament, you lie your way into power, and you damage people's reputation to gain political power. Is that the agenda that Miss Aluna Samba spoke about? We have an agenda. Political actors betray this principle whenever a person's reputation becomes expendable in pursuit of electoral advantage. You spend man's reputation. Oh, what a tangled web. What a tangled web that is. Tangled web to weave when a man's reputation becomes expendable. And as Jamaica reflects on 64 years of nationhood, the challenge is greater than choosing between parties. It is choosing between two political cultures. This now moves beyond choosing between political parties, and it now moves to choosing between political cultures. And what is the culture that drives the PNP versus the culture that drives the Jamaica Labour Party? Because one culture believes power justifies almost any tactic. The ball game of politics, is that a culture? Because that can't advance Jamaica. The other believes that truth, justice, and human dignity place moral limits on political competition. And those are the two cultures that I want to introduce you. That is what is to guide you as you place your X beside either the bell or the head. Do you vote for a culture that believes political power justifies the end of people's reputation? Because the future of Jamaica depends less on which party forms the next government than on whether our public life is governed by evidence rather than innuendos. Principle rather than expediency, and truth rather than partisan convenience. Glow Joe B say, I respect institutions. I have no respect or regard for this IC that lacks integrity. Talk about with Denise X. Hey, Denise. Talk about it with Denise X. Hello, Denise X. How are you? Independence is not measured only by the lowering of the flag and the raising of another. It is measured by the maturity of a nation's institutions, the integrity of its public discourse, and the willingness of its citizens to place truth above tribe. Truth above tribe. Truth above tribe. And if Jamaica is to become the nation our founders envisioned, we must insist that political disagreement never become a license for character assassination. We must insist that no Jamaican, regardless of party, should lose their good name on the strength of allegation that cannot withstand the test of evidence. Because in the end, the true measure of a democracy, my listeners, the true measure of a democracy is not how fiercely it competes for power. That's not the true measure of a democracy. The true measure of a democracy is how it faithfully protects truth. Truth matters. I want you to know that. Truth matters. And therefore, this Tapia interview reveals some interesting things. And I thought that I would jump on and share those thoughts with you. I have another 7 minutes, so let me tell you that the interview illustrates one of politics' oldest dangers: the transformation of rumor into perceived truth. Because public life depends upon a shared commitment to truth. And when allegations circulate without evidence, they can acquire the appearance of fact simply because they are repeated. You only need to repeat it. The ethical lesson, therefore, is simple. A democracy cannot survive if reputation is determined by repetition rather than proof. Reputation must not be determined by repetition. It must be determined by proof. That's all the time I have. You're gonna have to join me again at 7 o'clock. Yeah, let me go over to the chat and see who is there talking to me. Greek Jamaica 7 says the U.S. State Department not a patty shop. Wow, thank you for that. Cindy Lynch, Glow Joby, I am sure Daryl cried when he heard the interview. I didn't know how some people can be so evil. Thank you for that. Glow Joby said those faces do not show restful sleep. Wow. That's all the time I have. You hear? So thank you so much. You have to I come again. Um, bye bye, everybody. Take care of yourself and join me at 7 o'clock on the Hello Neighbor Show on TikTok, and I'll be back here on YouTube. I'll come again tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care of yourselves. Okay. Casey, Casey, you should you need to reach out to me, no man. Well, go on, man. You must reach out to me, Casey. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go prepare for the 7 o'clock show now. You see, Donette Mackenzie. I'm so ashamed. Oh boy, yeah, lots to be ashamed about. All right, so yeah, Casey, get in touch with me, man. All right, bye bye.